Hey, I'm Ryan J., film critic on TV and radio, and also Oz historian. Tonight, I invite you to join me in celebrating the Wizard of Oz for the 2020 Virtual Oz Convention of the International Wizard of Oz Club. It's my honor to pay tribute to the most outstanding stage adaptation of the classic film yet to be mounted, the 1998 Madison Square Garden production. With the legendary Mickey Rooney as the Wizard and Eartha Kitt as the Wicked Witch, the show dazzled audiences with magnificent casting, glorious sets, dancing, and effects. It brought the beloved movie to life in a way that both augmented and paid tribute to it. I should know, I was there. It was the highlight of my year at the time, getting to see it in NYC at the iconic MSG stage. Here, I'm in the lobby before the show with my friend Kimberly Vargas, so you can imagine how thrilled I am now, because reunited with us are some of the stars and creative talent that made Oz real for theater goers. But before we chat with them, let's take a look back at the Oz it was.
The producers of The Wizard of Oz on stage are giving Disney a run for its money.
I'd be brave as a blizzard.
I'd be gentle as a lizard.
I'd be clever as a gizzard.
If the wizard is a wizard who will serve,
Then I'm sure to get a brain,
A heart.
a home.
the nerve.
We're off to see the wizard.
To this day, it's the best stage version I've seen of The Wizard of Oz, and I've seen a lot. Now let me introduce the lady who played Dorothy at the same age that Judy Garland did. Jessica Grové stepped into the Ruby Slippers at just 15 years old, originating the role of Dorothy for the stage at Madison Square Garden, and staying with the show for years on tour. She has since grown up and starred on Broadway as Eponine in Les Mis, Miss Dorothy in Thoroughly Modern Millie, which I also saw her in, and she has a slew of other awe-inspiring credits like Ariel in The Little Mermaid, Belle in Beauty and the Beast, Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady, The Witch in Into the Woods. I could go on, but first, let's check out this clip where she once introduced herself.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Gale of Kansas. Well, up to 12 times a week, I get to play Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. My real name is Jessica Grové, and I'm from Ohio. It's been wonderful traveling with this play for the last 2 years.
Jessica, hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. It's so great to see you guys and be here.
You too. What do you think of what do you feel when you're looking at yourself back there as Dorothy?
Oh gosh, it's kind of surreal. One, I feel like my accent has changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's bizarre. I feel like I've grown into myself a lot more. You know, I don't know, like looking back, I think I was maybe 16 in that clip, maybe just 17, I don't know, but it's just really weird.
Surreal, right?
Yeah.
So at the time, if you can think back to when you were being directed for the show, how did you make the role of Dorothy your own? Judy Garland is so iconic.
Yeah. Well, something that I remember saying a lot back then is that I had made a point of not watching the movie right up, leading up to the rehearsals and everything, just so that I didn't try to imitate Judy Garland, but so that I could just kind of approach it as, I don't know, this Ohio girl instead of that Kansas girl. But then I also had a lot of wonderful guidance with Robert Johansson and Jamie Rocco and my co-stars. In fact, Lara Teeter even gave me some really good advice during a performance one time. He's laughing. I could see him. I think I had a crush on a sound guy maybe that was off stage right, and I kept looking past Lara at the guy off right, and he's like, Jessica, something that would really be good. And he probably put it better. He probably remembers exactly what he said, but he's like, it's really important to make eye contact with the people who you're on stage with and not look off into the wings. And so I learned so much just, I was learning. It was like a vocational training, right? Like
Right.
vocational school. I learned on the road.
Yeah, no, that's really fantastic. When singing Over the Rainbow, that is not just like Judy as Dorothy made that role iconic. Over the Rainbow is the most beloved, celebrated, awarded song in all of movie history. So how do you take on, it might be more intimidating at the age you are now to do something like that, but how did you feel about it at the time when you were, just a teenager?
Well, gosh, it was a huge undertaking. I grew up watching that movie and understanding the importance of it when I got the role. So just getting to pay homage to that film in such a beautiful production. Honestly, you said it best. It's like the best production I think that's ever been done on stage. So yeah, I didn't take the responsibility lightly. I definitely felt the importance of, being true to the movie.
And you really spent, some formative years of your life with the show. You basically grew up as a young adult while in this production. How do you think that this show helped form who you are today?
Well, I think, growing up on the road and with such a diverse cast, we had little people, we had older people, we had younger people, we had people of all shapes and sizes and colors, and then getting to see the world together, and we truly did become a family. Lara got married while we were on the road, and we were all there. I sang at his wedding, and it's just it was a really special way to grow up. And I never went to a prom in my high school, but I had opening nights in every single city, and I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I feel like I had a really unique, special childhood.
Yeah, who needs prom when you're wearing a dress and going to the Emerald City every night, right?
Truly.
Jessica, thank you so much. Stick around. Lara Teeter, you were the Scarecrow. And Lara Teeter is a Tony-nominated Broadway star who, get this, was nominated for the Best Featured Actor in a Musical for a role that was originally played by Ray Bolger. How fitting that Lara went on to play the Scarecrow in the landmark Madison Square Garden production. Hashtag mind-blowing. Other Broadway credits include The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas and The Pirates of Penzance. And I love that he got to play Scuttle in The Little Mermaid at the Muni when his daughter played Flounder. Come on, that's so cool. He's an artistic director, the winner of an Outer Critics Circle Award. But taking it all the way back, Lara, we have to talk about what your first musical role was.
Yeah, actually, I think when I sent you this picture, Ryan, I told you I was 14, but I realized it was in the spring. I was actually I was 15 when I did my first show, which was The Wizard of Oz. And this slide we're looking at, actually, I had to create my own costume. And what you're looking at in the way of the boots, those were my dad's sort of like totes rain boots. And then I can't remember, there was an ordeal of trying to get the hay. And, some old work gloves and some rope and some patches, so that was, I still have that Scarecrow hat in the trunk downstairs, actually.
I love it.
So, and I think at one point I tallied I'd played the role 8 times at one point, by the time I did this production with Madison Square Garden. So
wow.
I still am the Scarecrow in so many ways. And yeah, it's just really been an incredible part of my life. I can't even really describe it.
Mhm. So between having played the Scarecrow so many times and then doing it in this show and having been nominated for that role that Ray Bolger had originated, what did he mean to you? What did Ray Bolger mean to you as a performer prior to taking on this role in the Madison Square Garden production?
Well, I mean, everything, because I mean, Ray Bolger, Dick Van Dyke, Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, Bobby Van, these were the guys that I looked up to. But interestingly enough, later in life, I teach at the Webster Conservatory in St. Louis now. I teach musical theater. And when I first got the job 13 years ago, I taught musical theater history. I don't do it now, but I researched it, and actually Fred Stone was the first Scarecrow in 1904, and you can see archival footage of him moving around, and he really was double jointed. And that was Ray Bolger's actual inspiration for his version of it. So I didn't realize until after I'd played the role all those years that actually I was standing on the shoulders of Fred Stone, which was Ray Bolger's inspiration. So that was kind of how the lineage worked for me, and learning all about that, which was fascinating to come across that footage.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's incredible. Who are we looking at here?
Well, we're looking at Jessica Grové. We're looking at Michael. We're looking at Ken Page. And
Yes.
That's us backstage. So you mentioned earlier, it's up to 12 shows a week. We actually did sometimes 14 shows. In fact, we had days we did 4 shows, right, Jessica?
Yeah.
In one day. And what this picture reminds me of, and what this story reminds me of, is on those 4 show days, invariably standing backstage right where we were, one of us turned to the other one and said, okay, you got to carry me down that road, right? Because I'm, you know, and so we literally carried that dog and each other down that road. And, you know, it was just one of the most incredible experiences for me, because I spent all of my time either up in the air or on the ground.
Right.
And I just, the physical demands of the part, I don't know that I could write about or talk about, but I just know that it gave me so much.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're going to get back to you in a moment. We've got to talk about and meet Jeff Rizzo, who was the music director of the show. He's an accompanist, composer, conductor, all over the world. A few of his credits include Annie, Cabaret, Mary Poppins, Dreamgirls, Chess, Evita, and he's worked on The Wizard of Oz a few times as well, just like Lara, it sounds like. He is the co-founder of the Musical Theater Guild in LA, and he also worked on the arrangements for the Madison Square Garden show. Jeff, I'm so glad to meet you as well. When you were adapting these songs, what was the challenge there?
Well, it's so interesting because I tried to count the productions. I think I've done 10 Wizard of Oz's, and I'd done some before this one, before the RSC version was even available. And so we did this one. We used to do this, and there used to be this version, which you've probably seen, Ryan, I'm sure, that the Muni had adapted in the 50s. And it had a new book by Frank Gabrielson, I think was his name. And it had a rocket ship.
Yes. It's so random that you're bringing this up right now, Jeff. Like,
right.
You still have the script?
That's the first version I ever saw on stage when I was a kid in Sacramento. And I saw, okay. Then we did a production in Sacramento with the Hudson brothers. Remember them?
Uh-huh.
One of them never showed up because he was marrying Goldie Hawn. So anyway, so this was before Lara. And so I did that. I played rehearsal piano for that. And then a few years later, we did it again in Sacramento. And Lara was in this one with Kathy Rigby. And Marty Wiviet, who used to run Milwaukee Melody Top, he had done Wizard of Oz's, but they didn't use that script. They'd get the rights to that. And then somebody took the movie down, and somebody got into the library, which I think is in Wisconsin, where all the underscoring that had been written for the movie existed. And so there was...
Can I just tell you, I just have to interject. I was actually in a production where Andrew McCardle played Dorothy at Melody Top. When I was 10 years old, I got to be one of the Munchkins. So it's cool to hear you talk about that.
All right. So anyway, so there was this thing running around. So we did this one in Sacramento, and I remember Marty was working in Sacramento, and he said, you know, we could just do our own version, which was nowadays we'd never do this because we'd get totally blasted. But we actually, my partner took down the movie, gave it to the director. He kind of adapted it. We added 3 more Harold Arlen songs. Remember this, Lara?
Yes.
And it was like, we could never get away with this. No lyrics by E.Y. Harburg. We added Accentuate the Positive. We added I Got a Right to Sing the Blues, which became the Witches song, I Got a Right to Wear Them Shoes. And we added a song called My Shining Hour that Dorothy sang at the end. Kathy Rigby played Dorothy, and she had played Dorothy before in other productions.
Yeah, and Accentuate the Positive was brilliant because it was the 3 farmhands telling Dorothy to cheer up before the cyclone comes. So you actually got to see all of us do our physicalities in a musical, this wonderful musical number before we even got to Oz. It was awesome.
And what was really cool to me, Jeff, do it like, because I'm muted. Am I muted? No. He said, do it like Heart in Damn Yankees. So 3-part harmony. The guys did the same kind of staging. It was, and in fact, that production, I think Rob Barron played the lion. But it was supposed to be, this is interesting too, maybe Larry doesn't even know this, it was supposed to be Jim J. Bullock, but he got a movie called Spaceballs, if you remember that movie, so he had to drop out. So it was Tim Smith, Lara Teeter, and Jim J. Bullock, but then it was this guy, Rob Barron, who's now passed away. But anyway, so that was the beginning of me doing arrangements, because I had to do arrangements for those new songs.
Right.
Elmarie Wendell, who has also passed away, played the Wicked Witch, and you did this version of I Got a Right to Sing the Blues, which was I Got a Right to Wear Them Shoes.
So let me ask you then, when we get up to Madison Square Garden, and I noticed in the show, remember you had the introductions for the Scarecrow, Tin Man and Lion and their If I Only songs, but we didn't have the verse from the sheet music of Over the Rainbow. Who made that choice? Okay, well, I think that was Robert Johansson, but what we did do is, if maybe you don't remember, but the Glinda sang it at the end of the show when she was waving her, when she says, click your heel 3 times, she sang, when all the world's in a hopeless, blah, blah, blah. So that's where we put it. So we didn't lose it altogether. Right. Also at Paper Mill, because at Madison Square Garden, the show was a little under 90 minutes. At Paper Mill, we added the reprise of Over the Rainbow that was cut from the movie that Dorothy sings while she's, locked up in the witch's castle. We did a number of things. And I think we always thought that the verses to the songs kind of don't really work in the context of the show. But then at Paper Mill, so a lot of this music, we changed a lot of the dance music, and that's where I got involved with. And Jamie and I had done some productions ahead of Paper Mill. We had done it, he'll probably tell you about San Jose, and then later I joined in Oregon, and we did it in Pasadena. So there was all these things that little by little we kept adding things. We added underscoring that the RSC version didn't have, that comes from the movie. In some cases, I kind of created what I remembered from the movie. There's this really cool cue. It's called Marvel's Crystal, which is
I was going to bring that up, yes.
Where he's showing her in the crystal ball. And I remembered vaguely what it was like. This is before, do you remember that? There's that beautiful album now, that CD of the movie soundtrack with every cue. Well, this was before this existed, and I was too lazy to do a takedown. I was like, I'm not going to do a takedown. I'll just write my own. So I did this kind of cool thing, and I remember Robert, who didn't know that I could do something like that, he turned, Robert Johansson said, oh my God, when he heard the orchestration, he went, oh my God, that's really beautiful. I said, well, I kind of based it on what I remember from the movie, because it plays Merry Old Land of Oz in a minor key with this kind of like kismet-y sort of do-do-do-do-do going on. It's kind of a cool thing. And thankfully, I think we put it on our CD. I think
we did. And Jeff, one of my favorite things about it was you wrote Professor Marvel's introduction, that great vaudeville.
I wish I could say I wrote that. That's Peter Howard. That came from London. That was great though. That he took da 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 and did a ragtime version. What was great about it was we didn't just slavishly just put the movie on the stage.
Right.
There's a lot of creativity that went into it.
Real creative liberties too.
A lot of creativity, and what we tried to do was, and again, Jamie Rocco will talk about this too, I'm sure. We try to give the audience what they remember, but then we try to enhance that and do something even more. Right. And more fun. And I think And I think
he really
that's
did.
in a lot of Wizard of Oz's, and this one
Well,
was.
because, you know, the show is difficult to adapt. It's one stage show that is always going to be compared to a movie that is, let's be honest, perfect. So it's a very difficult show to do, but among all the shows that have been done, I think yours is the one that really worked. But I'm glad you brought up Jamie, because we have to introduce Jamie Rocco now. Full disclosure, reading his bio of director, writer, choreographer, performer, Jamie Rocco's resume made my head spin. It's like, it just wasn't going to stop. Like, what show hasn't he been a part of, right? Hamilton, maybe? But he has worked on the Broadway tour of In the Heights, and on Broadway he was in Cats, Wind in the Willows. He's traversed the globe for various productions, wearing so many creative hats. He even got to play the witch in Into the Woods. I mean, what gay guy isn't going to be jealous of that? I'm not even a performer, and I want to be the witch in Into the Woods, right? And he spent 3 years as co-director and choreographer of The Wizard of Oz. So, Jamie, thank you for being here today, getting to play with these songs and bring them to life in your own style through physical expression. What was it like?
Oh, it was a dream come true. I mean, just seeing everyone is bringing it all back to me, how you just felt so, you couldn't believe it was happening. You couldn't believe that somebody said, you get to help put on The Wizard of Oz. You know, you're like, oh my God, you know, where do you start? I think I sent you my original notes that as soon as I got the gig, I started writing down. I'm very big on colored pencils and using my whatever kind of drawing shapes to figure out how I'm going to express what I want to express on the stage. And I was dumbstruck at first. I wanted to stay true to the movie, and at the same time, I realized the only thing that you could do is let everyone know that I love the movie as much as you love the movie. We can't put the movie on the stage, but what we're going to do is reminisce together and try to make those fantasies that we have of the movie even better, even bigger, even more vibrant. And it was like a primal experience. It was like people were coming together and creating. We were like a tribe of people that were all there going, we love the Wizard of Oz. We love the Wizard of Oz. It was amazing. It was amazing. And
that sounds amazing. I wish I could have been there. I mean, I got to be in the audience, but I'm curious to know what you think. I'm assuming you've seen Wicked and you've seen The Wiz on stage. And how do you feel that your choreography for the Merry Land of Oz, let's say, compares to what we see in the Oz Dust Ballroom in Wicked, or Can You Feel a Brand New Day in The Wiz?
Oh my goodness. You know, I like to think that we're all pretty. You know, I never compare. I just like to think that everybody does their best work. And I heard Harold Prince say once, you do your best. And you hope that there's one moment that they remember. And then next. And that's kind of how I live my life. You do your best. You try to make it the most beautiful thing. I got to say that, Oz was the first time I did Oz, it was the second kind of big show that I directed in my lifetime. And I was a ballsy guy. I'm not nearly that fellow anymore. Lara will tell you that when he first knew me, blow out the candles. I was a ballsy guy. And I went into this thinking I can do The Wizard of Oz. And then I got to do The Wizard of Oz the first time, this is way before MSG. And I was freaking out. I didn't know what I was doing. Dogs, children, little people, flying people, people who couldn't remember their lines, fire, melting. It was crazy. I remember getting to San Jose the first time I did it. Heidi Carroll Johnson was my assistant. And she and I, Clara, we didn't know what we were doing. And we locked ourselves in the bathroom of our hotel room and staged the whole Jitterbug in the mirror of the bathroom.
Oh, that's cool.
San Jose. It was just, we wanted to do good work, and I hope it was good work.
Absolutely. Very, very cool. Well, We next have to talk to Robert Sher, who brought us all together. We would not be here all together right now if it weren't for this guy, producer Robert Sher, who received a Grammy nomination, one of 7, by the way, for his work on the original cast recording of the 1998 production. And he generously offered to reach out and get us all together to reminisce about this landmark experience. He also has credits that are hard to narrow down for an intro, but he produced the cast recordings of How to Succeed in Business, starring Daniel Radcliffe, aka Harry Potter, Patti LuPone's Gypsy, Matthew Broderick and Kelly O'Hara's Nice Work If You Can Get It, and much more. But right now, we have to chat about The Wizard of Oz because, like me, he hasn't gotten to just work with the subject. He's also a mega fan. Robert, I'm so glad to meet you through this project. And also, you sent me these pictures which show some dolls you had custom made. This is Mickey Rooney as the Wizard and Eartha Kitt as the Wicked Witch of the West. Tell us about how your Oz fandom has boiled over into your work on this project.
Well, it goes back to the RSC production. Larry Wilcox, who had done most of the orchestrations for the RSC, well, he did all the orchestrations, the RSC production, lived down the street from me, literally down the street. And Peter Howard, who was the dance and vocal arranger, I've known him since I was 16, and he worked with my mother. So there was a long tie there. So I wanted to do it back in 1987, but I was doing a Broadway show, which was quite traumatic, called Rags, with Teresa Stratus. And we ended up doing the album at that time. So The Wizard of Oz was kind of far off in another area of my life. So I didn't get to do it. But when this came up to do this production, it was by accident. I was doing Follies at Paper Mill with Robert Johansson, and I was doing, with Ann Miller and Mickey Rooney, Ann Miller, Phyllis Newman, Kay Ballard, Lillian Montevecchi, Eddie Bracken, Dee Hodes, Donna McKechnie. Anyway, I was doing that, and we were in the middle of doing it, and the same Robert Johansson recommended for me to do the album because there was another record company involved who was supposed to do it. And I have to say, because that's such an incredible thing, when I heard about it, I haven't forgotten it. 3 different contract negotiations with this record company, and they asked for a piece of the Wizard of Oz film in exchange for doing the album. And I remember the producer from MSG said after the 3rd go round, they said they just gave up. Luckily, I was with a record label where the owner, was TVT Records, was very enthusiastic about Broadway. I got called on a Thursday. The deal was made Thursday afternoon, and I went up to Toronto. I had seen the show opening night in New York, and I had seen it with Roseanne. I didn't like Roseanne in the part, but when I was there opening night with Eartha Kitt, it was like another world. And so we went up on Saturday for a Monday record, and I agreed to do all of this because I knew the movie and the score so well. I didn't know Jitterbug that well, but I knew everything else. And it was a family. It was a tremendous family that came together within a couple of days, hours, whatever you want to call it. And I want to say that at the time, there was no digital. I mean, it was the beginning of digital, but it wasn't really what we know today as Pro Tools and whatever. So we did, the entire album was done by hand. I can honestly tell you that all the sound effects, we did it like a movie. I mean, when, my goal was with this production was to make sure Eartha was very highlighted in it because, the witch always gets shortchanged, especially in the movie because she doesn't have that much to do. So I wanted to make sure we exploited her as much as possible. But I also I did not want to do a copy of what had been done in London. And I certainly did not want to compete with the movie. Mm-hmm. So thank God for Robert Johansson and Jamie Rocco and Jeff Rizzo. We were able to come together on some kind of concept pretty quickly on how we can make this different. So if you notice on the album, there's a lot of underscoring and a lot of dialogue. And that was my insistence. People say they only want to hear dialogue one time. But I thought in this particular instance, how are we going to differ? We didn't have enough time to really think about how we were going to make it. So this was the best way of doing everything that had never been recorded before.
Absolutely. I was able to find my copy. I love it. It's beautifully produced, with all the credits and we don't get CDs much anymore. So it's nice to have this. And as a collectible and as a memento from the show, what What was it like getting nominated when you heard this was nominated and attending the Grammy ceremony that night for this nomination? Tell us about that experience.
Well, it was interesting because I had done 3 shows that year. I did the revival of 1776 with Brent Spiner, the roundabout revival. I had done Follies, which was the dream of all time for me, and Wizard of Oz, which was another fantasy come true. And I thought, because of Stephen Sondheim and all the people involved with Follies, Phyllis and Kay Ballard and everybody, I thought I was going to get nominated for that, because that was the complete recording of Follies. Today, it's the most complete, because we recorded like 10 or 15 cut songs with orchestrations by Jonathan Tunick. And I thought, oh, that's what we're going to get that. And when the nominations came out and the Wizard of Oz, they hadn't done, the record company hadn't really done anything. But when we got nominated, I don't know what other shows were up that year, I was totally blown away. I didn't expect it at all. So this was a shock that period. I was in my 30s. I had been nominated one time before, which was Sugar Babies, Ann Miller and Mickey Rooney. That was in 1983. And now this was a big shock, because the interesting thing about this, and I don't want to take too much time on this, is almost to the date, I had worked with Mickey Rooney on Sugar Babies 15 years, because we recorded Sugar Babies on July 17th, 1983. So 2 weeks before, I worked with Anne, and that was her second cast album with Follies. And then 2 weeks later, I'm doing it with Mickey on Wizard of Oz. So I had got both of them with 15 years apart, and I got nominated with Mickey again.
Yeah.
I was sorry for Anne, but anyway.
Wonderful. Well, I love that you're bringing up the iconic and legendary Mickey Rooney, and also wanting to spotlight Eartha Kitt. They were scene stealers, obviously. Strong casting across the board and elements. But let's all now reminisce together about these 2 great talents. Let's take a look at Mickey first.
He's done over 200 films, has received 2 Oscars and an Emmy. Not bad for a man just 79 years old. And who would have thought that back in 1939, when MGM sent Mickey along to promote The Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland, that 60 years later, Mickey would be in The Wizard of Oz as the wizard himself.
One that can take her there.
Oh, could you?
Could I? Well, I think that it's a beautiful thing, because he gives the gift. The wizard gives the gift of true meaning in life. He gives the Scarecrow a brain, lion courage, and the Tin Man a heart.
Mickey Rooney is perfectly suited for the wizard, and it really has been a joy to work with him. He also brings an association with Judy Garland, which is very touching and adds another resonance to the piece. There's something impish and devilish about him. The audience loves seeing Mickey. When he makes his first entrance, the applause goes on for quite a while, and it's actually gratifying to think that, at that point in your life, you deserve that kind of recognition. I've always been very touched that he gets it, and it's a beautiful thing.
So Jessica, you must remember working with Mickey, and when he would first come out as Professor Marvel, was it ever awkward, or are you just used to it that he would kind of break the fourth wall and take his bow right then and there?
I mean, it happened every night, so we definitely got used to it. And, honestly, it was kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime thing, where somebody gets entrance applause and they literally are just waving to the audience, taking a bow and saying, thank you, thank you. And there were a few times, actually, maybe just once, that Mickey wasn't actually even there for his entrance.
Oh.
And so Toto and I were coming around the bend of the yellow brick road, and all of a sudden, there's no Mickey. And I'm looking around going, I wonder if Professor Marvel is home.
That's great.
I actually learned a lot about improvisation from Mickey Rooney.
Jessica was incredible throughout the entire experience. I have never seen anyone as poised over and over and over again when the strangest things would happen on stage. Jessica never let down. She was always Dorothy, and she was a consummate pro from the moment I met her.
Thank you.
Didn't Roseanne have a thing the year before, the first year we did it? Didn't she have a thing where she would like pull your pigtail? She tried to, I think she had this ambition to crack you up on stage, and I don't think she ever achieved it.
Yeah, I think on the Rosie O'Donnell show, she talked about, I just keep trying to get that little girl to laugh. And
she couldn't make you break character. And we were always like, you go, Jessica. You don't let her break. She would do anything. It was so funny. And didn't happen.
I mean, Mickey was pretty amazing to be around. And, there was a lot, he came with a lot of Mickey. You had to deal with a lot of stuff. I remember one time we were rehearsing the Merry Old Land of Oz, which he was not even in, but he would occasionally decide he wanted to dance through it. And I just got to the point where I would just keep going. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I'd let him just dance around all of us and it'd be like, whatever, you might do that.
The most remarkable Mickey Rooney story for me, I think it was in San Francisco, Jessica, you help me with this, but the balloon is going out at the end. And the way the balloon was balanced was, it was very particular. He had to stand, but he was leaning out, waving. No kidding, the basket tipped.
Yeah.
And only for the luck, like in Cirque du Soleil, his foot just happened to wrap around one of the ropes, and he was upside down. The friends were standing under him, and he was like, okay, I'm okay. Take me off. And they took him off gently. And he actually, of course, he's a showman. It was one of the greatest exits of all time.
Wow.
But he would, if his foot had not wrapped around that rope, he would have busted his head. Or probably bounced up and done a soft shoe, probably.
Ooh. But we kept it in then after that night.
That's so great.
Mickey never missed a performance.
Really?
Yeah, he never.
When he got sick, in Cincinnati, and I think he missed some. But that was like he was in the hospital. But he never missed. He never just called out a show. He never missed a show unless that one little time he got sick.
Yeah.
So, but that was it. That was the only time. There was also that great story that happened in Rosemead? What was that place called?
That's the thing outside
in Chicago.
Yeah, and where he couldn't remember the lion. The lion. And it was my first time sitting out of the show, noting the show with the dance captain, Ron Gibbs. And he says, and he looks at Ken Page, the bear.
No.
Well, this is it's a sort of a famous story. And the bear. And of course, I look at Ron and he looks at me and we start laughing so hard. It was like he just couldn't remember that he was the lion.
That's hilarious.
You look just like a big bear. The bear. Well, I don't know guys how you guys reacted. I don't know if you broke or not.
Oh God,
that might have been the one time I actually did break.
I think so too.
That was great. And then people have said to me, did Mickey Rooney ever really call the lion the bear? Yes.
Yes, it really happened.
Yes.
It really happened, and it was just so cute and funny, and I laughed so hard. I was holding myself laughing so hard. I was so unexpected. This is my third time working with Mickey. I'd done Showboat with him and a Sugar Babies for Vegas that I had worked on with him. So it was my third time working with Mickey. So
let's take a listen. Here's Mickey Rooney from the cast recording.
Well, bless my buttons. Why didn't you say that in the first place? That's the force of a different color. Come on in.
Come on. Icon, right?
Yeah.
Next, let's talk about Eartha Kitt. And you had a few different Wicked Witches along the way, filled by great celebrities.
Roseanne also brought some of her own nuances to the role.
Smart Alec that turned her into a house.
Roseanne was a stitch. She was incredibly funny. It was an unusual Wicked Witch. It was unexpected.
Example, when Roseanne would say, I would say to her, ha 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 ha, begone, you have no power here. And she would go, talk to the hand, girlfriend.
And only Eartha Kitt could make the witch wickedly sexy.
I toured the longest with Eartha Kitt, and she added her Catwoman type flair to the role, and she did her purring and growling, and they even created this witch cat suit for her to wear.
It's a wonderful, meaty role, and I'm just grateful that some other people have worked it out before me, found some good things, which I absolutely use.
Dorothy, is it? Can I call you dot.
Roseanne Barr, Joanne Worley, Eartha Kitt.
Lillian Montevecchi. We had Lillian Montevecchi.
So I'd like to jump off and tell my favorite story about Eartha Kitt.
Please.
And that is that she was always the first one there and the last one to leave. On those 4 show days, she waited outside. She signed every single autograph. And also, you would come into the theater, and her dressing room would be right there on the first floor. She would be watching the History Channel, knitting for her grandkids, and she would always say, "Come in here. I know them. I know them." No matter who was on the History Channel, she had some kind of connection to them. She goes beyond, like, she's in another planet for me in terms of Broadway royalty. I mean, it really is Eartha Kitt and her kingdom. And all of us are lucky enough to observe her. She was so fearless. By the way, the day, I told Robert this the other day, the day that we recorded the album, Kristen and I walked in and announced that we were engaged to be married. And 5 weeks to the day later, we got married in Sonoma Valley when we were in San Francisco. And they rented a big bus and the whole company came out. So Eartha Kitt was at our wedding dancing up the storm. Jessica, like she said, sang for our wedding. It was, to this day, 22 years later, the best.
Really incredible.
Amazing.
That was a great wedding, Lara, too. It was beautiful out there.
Yeah,
fantastic.
It was very special, and we have 4 children that reflect that. They're just the best. And
amazing.
You know, I pinch myself every day. I'm the luckiest man, the luckiest scarecrow alive.
Lara, I did see The Little Mermaid at the Muni. I did see it, so I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
Jessica, I'm curious. I saw online there was some B-roll and some behind-the-scenes footage from when you were traveling together. I'm assuming by bus, right, on tour.
And bus and plane, depended on the distance. Yeah.
Okay, and then I saw it looked like you guys would always eat together, right? There were lots. It looked like you and Eartha were really affectionate with one another.
Yeah. So we on those 3-4 show days, they would feed us between shows and. But yeah, Eartha and I became very, very close friends, and our friendship remained until the day she died. I think I saw her maybe a week before she passed away. And she was just always very good to me and to my, like, she would go to the theater with my mom even, like, the years leading up to her passing away. And yeah, she just became a really good family friend. She always came to see me in a show if it was off Broadway or on Broadway. And I remember I got a job playing a kind of a smaller role right after Wizard of Oz in a new musical in Las Vegas. And it was The Hunchback of Notre Dame de Paris. And I was on the phone with her, just sort of hemming and hawing, like, do I do this? Give up my senior year of high school? And she said, "Darling, it isn't the size of the role, it's what you do with it."
Wow, that's brilliant.
Wow. So she was a really good role model.
I'm going to have to interject here. Jamie and Jeff and Robert Johansson, you know, in this conversation, I have to really just pause here for a second and thank you guys. I mean, what a incredible team you guys were. And this project that you guys took on was mammoth. I mean, it was like a spectacle. You know, it harkened honestly back to Ziegfeld Follies, you know, in terms of the scope and size. That's why it took a corporation like Madison Square Garden, and then later Cablevision. We're not going to talk about that because all kinds of things happened when that took over. That merger happened. But it was the beginning of corporate theater. But the intimacy and the size, the way you guys cast this and the way you guys staged it and the way you guys handled it with such care, I just have to go on record for saying thank you.
By all means. By all means.
Cool.
You're here.
I want to circle back to Eartha, and Jessica, you did a really great Eartha impression.
Yeah.
She was a really unique performer, and let's take a look at a clip of what it took to bring the song that was originally going to be in the film The Wizard of Oz, the Jitterbug, bringing it into this fantastic production. Take a look.
The adaptation of the stage version of The Wizard of Oz is remarkably close to the classic film. But this production also has something that film didn't have. The Jitterbug.
A jitterbug is a little bug that comes to bite you and makes you dance until you're exhausted, makes you fall on the ground because you're exhausted. It actually is very cute. They shot some of it for the film, but none of the footage remains. The only thing that remains is some home movies that I think Harold Arlen took.
Judy Garland and friends spent 5 weeks rehearsing and filming the Jitterbug, but the number was cut after the first preview.
Hey, look, it's country lion dancing.
When they made stage versions of the Wizard of Oz, they put it back, and it's great on stage because at that point in the show, you don't have any more production numbers, so it's nice to have a production number in the last third of the show.
The Jitterbug came back to life when the movie was adapted to the stage, but during the first year at Madison Square Garden, there were some time constraints, and the Jitterbug number was left out.
When we came back the second year, and we did it with Eartha Kitt, we thought, well, we've got Eartha Kitt, it would be nice to give her something to sing.
But, you know, the whole thing about that, I just forgot how brilliant Jamie's work was on Jitterbug. I forgot.
Totally.
It was, yeah, you're laughing. It's terrific. Please.
So,
I mean, I was so thrilled that I got this. I was much happier on, I don't know if you're taping this, I was much happier on Wizard of Oz than I was on Follies. Anyway. I'm sorry, it's the truth.
You can say that.
I just want to play that clip like we did for Mickey. You know, Eartha, certainly featuring her in the Jitterbug. I remember when I saw that, hearing the witch sing that song and her performance of it. You know, obviously Margaret Hamilton, this is something Robert Sher and I were talking about off the call, but that, you know, Margaret Hamilton wasn't a singer, but it makes sense in a musical stage production of The Wizard of Oz to give the song to the witch if she's cast appropriately. And what Eartha Kitt did here with Jitterbug was amazing. Let's listen.
Look over there. Who's that hiding in the treetops? It's that rascal from the Jitterbug.
I mean, right?
Fabulous.
That's the way to do it. So, Robert, you want to talk about working in the studio with her?
Well, God. Well, I met her the night before we did the album, and she was terrific to me. You know, I couldn't have been nicer. And my lawyer and her lawyer were the same person. So Chandler, my lawyer, came up, and because the contracts hadn't been done, everything happened so quickly. And he sat with her in the studio the whole day. And she did everything I asked her to do. There wasn't a question of how come and why and all of that. She just did it. And the same thing with Mickey. Mickey, who had been, I hate to say this, was problematic on Sugar Babies, was not on this one. And I thought, oh, he's going to start up with me again. He didn't. And then I did a third project with him after Wizard of Oz. But no, it was a wonderful project. I have to give thanks on this project, especially to Don Pippin, who had come up at my request and was the recording supervisor. And he kept me together because it happened so fast. And I've already gave a shout out to Peter Howard and to Larry Wilcox, so I loved. And Jeff, what he did for the show was terrific. All the new stuff, which was sensational. Sensational. It was perfection.
It's pretty much
I loved getting to work with Don Pippin. I thought it was great because I think you called me, Robert, and asked me. You said, "You feel okay if I bring in Don Pippin?" I said, "Yes. I want you to have somebody in the booth with you listening because no better ears than his, and he was such a great guy."
I think Don Pippin's in the record books for being the last person given a Tony Award for musical direction. That was the last year.
He was the last conductor to get a Tony Award. And they got rid of that award.
Yeah.
Correct. But I mean, and I also want to shout out, and I'm for Jeff, and I want to say this to John Miller, who contracted the orchestra. we were in a funny situation, and I want to tell, because I don't know if everybody knew this, but the show had just left Madison Square Garden, and the New York Union felt compelled to make claim on the show, even though it had not started in New York. So we were required to offer the New York musicians the job, even though we were recording in Toronto, which was at the Hummingbird Center. And 7 musicians did come up to Toronto to do it. And John Miller was great in making everything happen, because it had to happen really quickly. And we had a terrific, we didn't have 16, we had 30 some odd musicians, because we had to, compete with the MGM situation. And I was very insistent upon that, but I was thrilled because when we were doing it, it felt like we were at MGM. I mean, at least I thought so. We did this at the recording studio was called Manta Sound, which was in Toronto, which was the top studio in Toronto. And that's where they had done the concept album of Ragtime.
Was the show traveling and performing in Toronto, or did you all just fly up there to record?
No, it was travel.
In Toronto.
Yeah, well, that was the next stop after Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
So I think the hope was they wanted to record it in New York. But that, of course, didn't happen. The Toronto situation turned out great. And I also want to shout out to my engineer, Doug Mountain, who's a big engineer who does the Grammys every year now. He works for Warner Brothers, and we had our hands full. We really did, with all the sound effects and all of that.
It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous album, Robert.
Thank you.
It really is beautiful. Sorry. Jamie, you in choreographing the Jitterbug, it's one of the reasons that they cut it from the film was the filmmakers in 1939 thought that it would make it, it would kind of make the film dated because of the Charleston, because the dance, the Jitterbug, all of that. When you choreographed it, it certainly, plays timeless, just like the rest of the music on stage. What was your inspiration in coming up with a dance for that song?
There were kind of 2 things going on in my head. One was to capture the moment that somebody had been bitten by a bug and had to just keep dancing. So there was that going on. And then I wanted to pay tribute to those bits of film that had been discovered. So I really studied those little tiny clips and tried to pick some of the steps from those clips and then adapt them into what we were doing. So it was kind of twofold. But primarily, I wanted to tell the story. I wanted to make sure that Jessica and Lara would go, whoa, like that, but somewhat controlled,
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Now, just a couple questions left, because we're really running out of time. But do you remember any celebrities that came to see the show and then come backstage?
Oh, yeah, in LA, a lot of people. I remember Bruce Jenner with those little baby Kardashian girls.
Right. Who now own the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell you which ones, but
Kylie, I don't even know.
Yeah, there were some of them were like little, like they were like 6 and 7 years,
Yeah.
Kids. In LA, we saw a lot of celebrities come. I can't even remember all of them. Some of the what's her name from St. Louis, who was Tootie? She came.
Oh, Margaret O'Brien.
Yeah, there were a lot of people. I don't remember in New York so much. I think we had Kevin Bacon was there introducing the show one night.
I seem
there
to
were
remember
several.
that Whoopi Goldberg was there in Roseanne's dressing room one night. So I don't know. Because remember, we used to have to, if you wanted to talk to Roseanne, you had to go through that tent first. But for some reason, I had free reign. I could go directly into the dressing room. So I took that as an opportunity to constantly, I'm hanging out with Roseanne. So I went in would hang out with Roseanne. And
Honestly, when the show was over, I was too tired and hungry to notice. But I will share a little Broadway Babylon here, which was that when we were in Toronto, there was this little show rehearsing at the same time up there called Fosse.
Oh.
And we kept hearing stories because there was the old guard that had done dancing and these new dancers that were now these young kids coming in that were the Fosse dancers. And they were not mixing because the one person that wasn't there was Fosse himself. And so Chet Walker and her name,
Anne
Reinking were pulling the troops together, but there was this kind of schism between in that company that we were having lunch with and talking about the whole time we were doing Oz in Toronto.
That's fantastic.
That's a good bit of Broadway Babylon.
Yeah. Amazing.
Should I tell everyone what Roseanne was doing when she melted every night?
Yes.
Oh, do tell, because because we used to hear it in the pit. So yeah.
Roseanne she melted, and then we wanted her to come back from the same trap door for her bow, but that meant in Madison Square Garden there was no way for her to exit really and get back there in time. So she had to stay down there in that little pit, and she agreed to do it as long as we put a blender in the pit with her. And so every night she'd melt, and then we'd have, everyone would be happy again, and then everyone would be free, liberation, and then all of a sudden you'd hear, "Arr!" She was blending up a drink out there.
The Winky scene.
Oh, wow.
Dead. She was making her daiquiri.
I actually, I don't know if you guys ever saw this show I wrote called Streakin', but I actually used that bit. I had Christy Moore, who was in the tour, sing the song "You Light Up My Life" while somebody on stage made a margarita. All during it. So she'd go, "You," and then you'd hear blender, 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 and then they turn it off, and you just heard the end of "You Light Up My Life."
Brilliant, brilliant.
That was behind the pit, but we could
tell you
hear,
they do for life. So.
We could always hear the blender, and we could hear Roseanne sort of laugh a little bit. And of course, that would crack up the orchestra. They'd hear Roseanne go, "Ha, ha, ha." It would be soft. I mean, the audience couldn't hear it, but we'd hear it. And I remember my oboe player would just laugh like heck. She just was, it was so infectious. She goes, "What's she doing back there?" I said, "She's having a daiquiri."
Have it whatever she wants. I hope some nights it was a malted, but I don't know.
Lastly, and really quickly, I'm just curious if each of you could tell me, if you were able to do the show again all together, what would you be most excited about?
Being all together.
The love.
Yeah.
I definitely felt
fun.
it.
It would be fun to do it again. Lara and I did it again. Didn't we do it again at the Muni, Lara?
Yeah.
I think we did, yeah.
We did.
Yeah, we've done it. So I've done it a bunch of times, and it was like, Lara's done it like many of the times. So it's like,
yeah, Mercedes Ellington.
He's the guy. Yes, Mercedes
and I think Charlie Ripley directed.
Right.
I still have dreams, like anxiety, actor's nightmare dreams. Like now at 38 years old, I like wake up going, I didn't know any of my lines. Like we were doing the Wizard of Oz and like we all came back to do it. And I'm like, I didn't remember anything.
Wow.
So, I just want to say one thing before we go. When I got nominated for the Grammys, we were at the Shrine Auditorium, and I'm sitting with David Zippel and Matthew Wilder. They were nominated for Mulan, and I've known David since I'm about 15 years old, so I was sitting with them. And then they announced The Wizard of Oz, and I heard this screaming from the mezzanine, and I didn't, who knew? And I turned, I said, "Are these friends of yours?" He said, "No." It was Jessica and her family. I couldn't believe it. So, yeah.
That's very.
I was so excited when it got the Grammy nomination because I had gone to Madison Square Garden and said they had this. I don't know if you remember, Ryan, but when you walked in, they had this thing where they were selling everything Oz imaginable.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah,
yeah.
Stuffed. I've still got this stuff.
You had a gay pride hat before anybody
we had
was gay.
everything. And there was no album. I said, "Why are we going to do a cast album?" And they said, "Oh no, the mechanical rights, blah 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 blah." I said, you should do a cast album." So I think I sort of got the ball rolling a little bit. So the day that they announced that we were in Philadelphia, we were doing the show, and they came in and they said, "By the way, the album got a Grammy nomination." Well, I was like, "See, I told you." Well, I was so excited about it because I was like on a mission that we were going to do a cast album, and thank God we did. And thank God it was Robert.
It's hard to come by, but anybody, if you want to look it up, it is out there. And you guys, I just want to congratulate all of you on this amazing show that you got to work on together. And thank you so much to Jessica Grové, Lara Teeter, Jeff Rizzo, Jamie Rocco, Robert Sher for joining me on this very special trip down the Yellow Brick Road. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you'd like to check out more of my interviews with the stars of other Oz movies, TV shows, and stage productions, check out my website. It's ryanjreviews.com. And to learn more about all aspects of Oz and join the Greater Oz fan community, join the Oz Club at ozclub.org. So until next time, remember, Now more than ever, there's no place like home. So stay there or wear a mask. Stay safe.